Seat 16A wasn't supposed to matter. It was just another window seat on a routine commercial flight, occupied by a quiet old man with silver hair, a weathered face, and eyes that looked like they had seen far more sky than most people ever would. No uniform, no entourage, no medals, just an aging passenger who kept his hands folded, his back straight, and his gaze fixed on the clouds outside. The flight attendants barely noticed him. The passengers didn't notice him at all. But 40,000 feet above the Atlantic, when two F-35s slid into formation beside the aircraft, and an unexpected voice came across a classified frequency, the entire meaning of Seat 16A changed forever. And before we go any further, if you love your country and respect your soldiers, hit that subscribe button right now. The flight had departed quietly, the way thousands of flights do every single day across the United States. Engines roared, wheels lifted, and a massive aircraft climbed smoothly into the sky. Inside the cabin, life settled into its familiar rhythm. Seatbelt clicks, overhead bins snapping shut. The low hum of conversation mixed with the white noise of cruising altitude. In Seat 16A sat the old man. He boarded early, declined assistance, and thanked the gate agent with a voice that was calm, steady, and unmistakably disciplined. He wore a simple jacket, neatly pressed slacks, and polished shoes that hinted at a lifetime of habits that never faded. The woman seated beside him noticed him only because of how still he was. While others shifted, checked phones, or complained about legroom, he sat like a statue, shoulders squared, chin level, hands resting evenly on his knees. She tried to strike up small talk, the way nervous flyers sometimes do, but his replies were polite and brief. He smiled once, a faint curve that appeared and disappeared like a memory. When she asked where he was headed, he said, "Home," and nothing more. As the plane leveled off, the cabin lights dimmed. Outside the window, the sky stretched endlessly, blue fading into white, clouds rolling like a silent ocean beneath them. That was when the vibration changed. Not turbulence, something sharper, more deliberate. A subtle shift in sound that only a few people noticed. Then another. The woman in 16B leaned closer to the window, squinting. That was when she saw them. Two fighter jets, sleek and angular, pacing the aircraft with surgical precision. F-35s, close enough to see the sharp lines of their wings, close enough that the sunlight glinted off their canopies. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Phones came out. A child pointed excitedly. A man a few rows back muttered something about escorts and airspace. The old man in Seat 16, it did not move. In the cockpit, the pilots had already noticed. The presence of the fighters wasn't alarming. This corridor occasionally overlapped with military training zones, but the proximity was unusual. Then came the message. Not on the public radio. Not on any channel meant for civilian ears. A secure transmission crackled through the cockpit, coded and brief, requesting confirmation of a passenger manifest detail that made the captain's hands go still on the controls. The captain read the name again. Then again, his pulse quickened. In the sky beside them, inside the lead F-35, a young pilot listened as his systems cross-checked an identifier tied to an old call sign, one that hadn't been spoken operationally in decades. It wasn't supposed to be active. It belonged to another era, another war. Yet there it was, lighting up his display like a ghost refusing to stay buried. Back in the cabin, the woman beside the old man felt the plane adjust slightly, the engines modulating. She turned to him, half joking, half nervous, and asked if he'd ever seen fighter jets that close before. The old man finally turned from the window. His eyes were clear, focused, alive in a way that startled her. "Yes," he said, "many times." Minutes later, a voice came over the intercom. Calm, professional. The captain informed passengers that there would be a brief deviation and asked everyone to remain seated. The tone was reassuring, but beneath it was something else. Respect. Almost reverence. The old man closed his eyes for a moment. Far outside, the F-35 pilots received final confirmation. The call sign was real. The man was on board. In protocol, old, rarely used but never forgotten, was now in effect. Both jets adjusted position. And then, In a move that would later be described by air traffic controllers as unprecedented, the F-35s tipped their wings in unison, a crisp, unmistakable salute in mid-air, directly aligned with seat 16A. Inside the cabin, silence fell like a curtain. The salute wasn't for the passengers. It wasn't for the cameras that would later analyze the footage frame by frame. It was for one man, and one man alone. The old man opened his eyes as if he had felt it before he saw it. Slowly, with effort that betrayed his age but not his resolve, he raised his right hand. His fingers straightened, his palm angled just right. It was the cleanest salute the woman beside him had ever seen. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just perfect. She stared at him, her heart pounding, realizing she was witnessing something deeply private and profoundly historic. Memories surged through the old man like a sudden change in altitude. He was no longer in a padded seat with a tray table folded up. He was young again, strapped into a cockpit that shook with raw power, flying missions where the margin for error was measured in milliseconds. He remembered voices over the radio, some calm, some terrified, some that went silent forever. He remembered leading men half his age in a skies that burned, making decisions that could never be undone. His call sign had been earned, not given. It came after a mission that textbooks never covered and medals never fully explained. A moment when retreat would have been safer, when orders were unclear, when lives depended on instinct and courage alone. He had brought them all home that night. Not one lost, not one left behind. After the war, he had disappeared into normal life the way many legends do. No speeches, no interviews. He raised a family, buried friends, watched the world change. And as the years passed, his call sign became a footnote, then a rumor, then a line in a classified archive few ever opened. Until now, in the cockpit, the young F-35 pilot held his salute a second longer than required. He thought of his own training, the hours in simulators, the instructors who spoke of history with voices full of awe. They had told stories about the old man without ever saying his name, describing him as if he were part myth, part warning, part inspiration. Remember, one instructor had said, "Everything we do up here was built on the backs of those who flew before us." As the jets peeled away, returning to their patrol, the cabin slowly exhaled. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Phones lowered. Something sacred had passed, and everyone seemed to understand it instinctively. The captain's voice returned, this time directed at a single passenger. He thanked the old man for his service. He didn't say which service. He didn't need to. The old man nodded once, then lowered his hand. The woman beside him wiped her eyes without realizing she was crying. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but she didn't. Some stories weren't meant to be pulled apart. They were meant to be felt. As the plane began its descent, the sky darkened into the colors of evening. The old man looked out one last time, watching the clouds glow gold and crimson. When the wheels finally touched down, there was no applause, no announcement, just a quiet understanding that history had shared the cabin with them, and then slipped away again. He stood, retrieved his bag, and walked up the aisle with the same steady pace he'd had when he boarded. At the door, a flight attendant whispered "thank you," her voice trembling. He smiled, that same faint smile, and stepped into the terminal. Seat 16A was empty once more. But for those who witnessed it, the sky would never look the same again. And now I want to hear from you. From which part of the country are you watching this video?